In this module, we will look at different types of errors that we can make. We always want to feel the worksheet is correct. Unfortunately, there are times we make errors. One error that occurs is a column is not wide enough to display the result. This is not technically an error, but this is what happens. Let's look at column B, and assuming the column is a little smaller, now we have the pound sign. We may also see the pound sign occur when you put in a date which may be negative. So as an example, if I put in minus, and we have the pound sign. We see on the screen that another error is the pound sign with div divided by 0. That occurs when you divide a number by 0. It also occurs when you divide a number by the contents of an empty cell. We can see that's exactly what happened, where we have the average of B7 divided by D7. And we can see that B7 is empty and D7 is empty as well. If we try to use a function that does not exist, we will find another error, pound sign name. So for example, let's try this. Equal sum, and let's say we forget to put in anything after that, and we press enter. We now have that error coming up. Other errors that can occur would be the pound value, and that occurs sometimes when the formula is expecting an integer but you may have put in some text instead. And then we have the REF, and that sometimes refers to cells that may have been deleted or cells that do not contain any data. And a last one here is possibly the number returned is too big or too small for Excel to recognize it. Many types of errors, and there are even more. We will look at an error that occurs on occasion, but it's a very serious error. It's called circular reference. When a formula refers back to its own cell, either directly or indirectly, it creates a circular reference. And this can have significant impact on performance because it can, well, obviously it's going to give us an error. So let's see how this can occur. One simple way is by adding the numbers by putting in the formula equals sum, and this time we are going to add up all the numbers but include the cell whereby the formula occurs, and we get the answer of 0, which doesn't make sense. And if we look on the bottom of the screen, it tells us circular reference B9. So it tells us where that error occurs. And another way of seeing something very similar to that is by going to the top of the screen and looking at the area where it says formulas, and click where it says error checking, and one of the sources there says circular reference, and it tells us the file, the worksheet, budget, WPC, version 2. So this is what we would need to do. We would need to analyze the formula that appears on top that we typed in, B2 to B9, and we see the error, and we should change that B9 to the correct value, which would be B7. And if we take a look at the error checking that we did earlier by going to formulas and error checking, see that the circular reference did disappear. Okay, so there we go with circular reference. Because this topic is so important, I would like to review some key elements in avoiding errors. First, when you use functions, make sure you begin every function with an equal sign. Make sure you have the appropriate number of parentheses, one at the beginning and one at the end. Make sure you put in a colon when you have a range, like B2 to B6. You put in the appropriate information like B2 colon B6. Make sure that the items you put in within the formula, the arguments, are correct. And these are some that we've discussed at this point. Others that are more subtle, but it's worthwhile keeping in mind for future modules. When numbers are put in, don't format them initially. Just put in the number and then format it later. So for example, the number 1800, just put in as 1800 even though it is $1,800. The dollar sign and the comma will be inserted at a later point when you decide to format. We have a few other things that we've mentioned in the past, and I again would like to just review them briefly. That is to always try to take advantage of the formulas on top where we have a number of choices to check any errors. One, to trace our precedence, where the formula refers to the cells that created that result. Tracing the dependents. Show the formulas which we really haven't looked at. Just take a look at it briefly. This will show what formula was typed in to get the result. So for example, the 167 was obtained by having this formula sum B2 to B7. And this is very useful when you have a number of formulas. This way the spreadsheet will show you all the formulas at one time. Error checking to see if there are any errors in the what the errors are, to trace the error or circular reference if that occurs. Evaluate formula button, which is located on top. You'll see that once we choose the formulas, and under here it says evaluate. The evaluate formula has next to it a little like f of x, like a function key to recognize that. And the purpose of this is to help us walk through complex formulas one step at a time. It's really a great way to make sense of these complicated formulas if you're going to be using them, that may include multiple sets of parentheses holding many calculations that take place. And what I have here are just some numbers I typed in, and I did create a formula. You can see the formula is summing up these four numbers, and then I add to that 3 times what's in cell J7, and then I subtract off J9 divided by 10. But let's go now to the top of the screen where it says evaluate formula. We click on that, and it shows us, first of all, what I have written down, and it's underlined. And let's continue and click on evaluate. And notice what happens. It does an evaluation of the beginning. It adds it up, and it goes on to the next step, plus 3 times J7. And I can go to evaluate that, and then it continues to the next step that occurs. Continue with that, evaluate, and it puts the numbers together. Evaluate again, it goes on to the next step, J9 and divided by 10 to show us what comes up from that. And finally, the last step is 151 minus 7, evaluate that, and we see the final result, which is 144. To summarize what we have seen, when we click on a cell and the evaluate formula button, we see this dialog box that breaks down the calculations. Now the window, you may not have noticed, but the window underlines the next calculation about to occur, and when you check evaluate, you'll see the calculations result. And that part of the formula turns to an italicized value, which is then used in the rest of the calculations. As we keep clicking evaluate to move through each step in the formula, gives us a final result. This can be very useful when you do have involved formulas.